Okay, everyone, welcome and thank you very much for coming. There's three of us here to talk to you about doing a master's degree in archaeology here in Glasgow and about what it's like being a student here in Glasgow. So we'll start by introducing ourselves. My name's Michael Given. I convene the MSc in Archaeology, which is the master's programme that's the most general of the ones that we offer. I'm mainly a landscape archaeologist. I work particularly in the Eastern Mediterranean, specifically Cyprus, and also in Scotland. I'm interested in later historical periods, relationship between people and the environment, and that sort of thing. And of course, that's what I teach as part of the programme as well. So I'm going to pass on to Ariana now, who'll tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
So hi everyone, my name is Ariana and I'm originally from Slovakia, but I moved to Glasgow 5 years ago, where I did an undergraduate degree in archaeology, and right now I'm doing an MRes in archaeology as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And David?
Yeah, hello everyone. My name's David Crane and I'm originally from Australia, from Sydney in Australia. So my background is ancient history, so I completed a Master's in Ancient History in Macquarie Uni in Australia, and I've come over to Glasgow to study a Master of Science in Archaeology. So that's me.
Okay, thank you very much. So everyone, do please put in any questions that you might have. You're welcome to ask about the particular programs we have, or what the courses might be, or what life is like when being a student and studying a master's degree. If you're interested in field work, or you have any practical questions, then just let us know, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. One thing that I might be interested, might be helpful for us to know is which programs have you applied for? So is it the MSc in Archaeology, which as I say, is the general one, or Material Culture and Artifact Studies, or there's a couple of allied programs like Ancient Cultures and Museum Studies. So you're welcome to put into the chat just which one you're doing, so that we know what you're interested in. Perhaps while we're waiting for your questions to come in, we could start by having a chat about the MSc in Archaeology, which I would imagine that the majority of you would be interested in. This is partly intended as a broad-based program where you can choose different courses and put together your own combination and follow up your own particular interests. And as Dave said, he's doing that. Perhaps in a minute he can tell us a little bit about his experience. But if I can just sort of explain the structure of it first. Basically, there's only one core course that you have to do, and that's research skills. Okay, so it's just the generic skills that you would use in any archaeological topic. Other than that, you can put together your own program. We have courses on material culture. We have courses on landscape as well. We have courses on working with the public, and so on. So there's a broad range there. And in terms of areas and periods, we do more or less all periods, Mesolithic right up to the later historical periods. And we don't cover the whole world. So basically, our courses tend to cover Scandinavia to Kurdistan and Iraq. Okay, so it's Europe and the Mediterranean and the Middle East, more or less. And so you'll find a range of courses across all of that period. And you'll see the link there that's just gone up. That lists the different programs that we do, the different degrees, of which, as I say, the MSc is the main one. Okay, so remember to think of some questions and pop them in the chat. Perhaps I can pass over to Dave now to give you the student perspective on doing the MSc in Archaeology.
Hi everyone. So I made the move from ancient history. I did some digs in the Mediterranean from my course, and I searched around places in Europe, and I found the University of Glasgow's course kind of, if you want to do archaeology, and it's got good variation from digital imaging to artifact studies and remote sensing. So if you've done ancient history background and some digs and you want to find out more or want to pursue a career in archaeology, there's some really good variations with the science, the masters in science in archaeology. So that's why I chose it, and I have varied it to get a more general perspective. So I've done digital imaging, remote sensing, artifact studies. It's been great. So I think it allows you to, if there's certain interests you have in doing practical archaeology, it allows you to pursue those in different levels. So I did some landscape courses, and probably, remote sensing is where I've concentrated mine. And I think, and so that it is good like that. I think, and then once you've done your coursework, there's a dissertation which you can pursue your interests further to complete the course. I think anything else there, Michael? Do you think?
That sounds good. Perhaps I can just add that some of our students have done archaeology before, specifically archaeology. Some, like Dave, have done a very closely similar subject like ancient history, but others come from further outside archaeology, as it were. And that's fine, that's good. That's one of the purposes of this program. It's a bit of a conversion course. So it does allow you to get up to speed in archaeological principles and practices and theory and so on, so that you can convert from wherever you're coming from to a more archaeological specialism. So we do cater for that. Do you think, perhaps I can ask you, Dave, do you think it's quite intensive, the course, particularly if you're coming from outside archaeology itself? Do you think it's a steep learning curve there?
I think if you're coming from archaeology background, it might be slightly easier to get into. So there's a slight variation from history, but there's a constant workload. So and you can do your 8 subjects and split it over 2 sessions. So I think, I think if you've got some sort of history and archaeology background, which you have to do, I think both backgrounds would be fine. And I think people coming from undergrad archaeology, they'll have the contextual knowledge to be able to pursue specializations through the master's stream.
Thanks very much. Dave mentioned that we have courses on material culture. Perhaps I can just explain here that as well as our MSc in archaeology, where you can take courses in material culture, you can also choose a more specialist program, which is our MSc in material culture and artifact studies. So this includes a little bit of museum studies type of thing, but it's mostly an archaeological approach to artifacts and so on. And this is convened by Nairi Finlay. Ariana, you've done a couple of courses from that program, haven't you? Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what you study in these courses and what your experience of it has been.
Yeah, so basically, yes, I did a couple of courses from the material culture and artifact handling one. And I was primarily focusing on the one which was dealing with theories we apply to material culture to make sense of the material culture, and then how we communicate it to those theories or ideas to people. So basically, the program is set up in a way that there are a couple of core courses you need to take. So in first semester, that's the theoretical approaches to material culture, and then there are some artifact handling sessions in the lab as well. And then it's a bit freer from second semester, where you can pick and choose the courses you're actually really interested in, or you would like to pursue as an extra, like digital imaging or 3D scanning or something like this. And the program, there is a really good option in the program that you can do a work study instead of a whole dissertation project, which I think it's really good because it also gives you a bit of work experience and a degree. So while you're studying, you're also doing a small research project as well, but you you kind of get a bit of work experience included in that program.
Yes, thanks very much. That's a really nice feature of that particular program, that you can do a placement. You might be working with an archaeological company on processing their finds after their excavations, or, as you say, a museum or something. Perhaps, Ariana, could you tell us a bit more about the artifact handling classes, and how much was there? What was that like? Did you enjoy that aspect of it?
Well, I haven't done that myself, but I was doing the theoretical one. But I know kind of a lot of people who did that, and it was basically what I know about that is kind of a nice change from a seminar room based off discussions of how we do archaeology, and then basically being into a lab, and you can actually do the archaeology and do the interpretation, and you can handle the objects. And then I think that object handling session, or like course throughout the semester, was built on different topics. And then from those different topics, you approach material culture, like treasure trove, or some like themes like that.
Thanks very much. I teach on a different course, which is called Approaching the Ancient World Through Material Culture, which is a sort of half classics, half archaeology course. And for the first session of that, we go to the Hunterian Museum, which is the university's own museum, and look at some Cypriot artifacts. And yes, there's the link for the Hunterian Museum website. There's huge amounts of stuff there. There's a really nice Cypriot collection. And this isn't just, looking at objects in glass cases. It's hands-on, it's handling, just as Ariana has been talking about. And I think everyone really likes that, because these things are typically Hellenistic and Roman. But what we look at is things like lamps. This is a replica, by the way. This isn't a real one. But to be able to pick this thing up and figure out how it works, like you put the oil in there and the wick comes out there, and this is a little handle so that you can hold it really carefully, without spilling boiling oil over your hand. And you get so much insight into these materials by actually handling it. And there's some clay figurines from sanctuaries that we look at, and various sorts of pots, and we try and figure out how you hold them and how you pour them. And there's very, very small vases for putting perfumed oil in. We're trying to figure out if they still smelt of perfume after 2,000 years. A couple of people thought they did. And that's great, because as Ariana just said, this isn't something abstract we're doing, just sitting in a lecture room. Archaeology is about doing things, okay? So like handling the artifacts. As well as artifacts, and Dave mentioned landscapes. Dave, could you tell us a little bit about practical landscape work? Because again, how do you learn about landscapes just sitting in a lecture room?
Yeah, that's true. So that's a really good question, Michael. So the first one, so I did landscape archaeology and Mediterranean archaeology. So you probably use GIS systems to start off with. Before I do that, I do remember in your class we did have the 3D virtual reality of Glencoe. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that was during COVID. Yes.
Yeah, during
because
COVID.
Sadly, we couldn't go there.
Yeah. So that was the online, but we did have a practical where we could get it in about Glasgow. So I thought it was a good combination. So there's the digital tools that allow you to look at a landscape using different software systems, and then there's also provides you the tools and the resources to get out, as we did and went out into the landscape of so I think I went and had a look at a 19th century, no, it was 18th century ammunition mill in Glasgow, so along the River Kelvin. So that was really good as well. Obviously at the time we couldn't get down to the Mediterranean to do Mediterranean landscapes, but I think Scotland's just as a good landscape to study practically, and it was a good combination. And also, so what I've also forgotten, it also takes you through the landscape theory and how to look at landscapes in different ways. There's some different theories that you can use to enhance your understanding, and help other people enhance their understanding as well.
Thanks very much, Dave. I really like the sort of balance that you've got there between the digital tools and the being there in the landscape, and the theory as well, ways of understanding and interpreting the landscape. So in a way, all of our courses try and do that. They tend to be quite broad in terms of their scope and the different ways of learning up a new topic. Yes, also, David, it was really helpful that you've talked about digital methods as well, because in a way that's another specialism that we have here in archaeology at Glasgow. So geographic information systems is this really powerful tool for doing spatial analysis at often a landscape scale. And we have one amazing specialist in precisely that. And then there's remote sensing that, again, Dave has talked about. My colleague Rachel Oppitz does all of that. I have another colleague, Gareth Beale, who does really interesting sort of creative uses of digital media for engaging people with artifacts, including virtual reality and augmented reality and so on, but also engaging people with landscapes. But he's also a bit of a maker as well, so he likes making things practically. So there's another, there's a whole range there of not just technical skills, but creative skills that you can bring to archaeology. Okay, do have a think if you've got any specific questions for us. They can be very general, they can be very precise about details of the programme. That's absolutely fine. We'll do our best to answer whatever you throw at us. While you think about that, perhaps we can talk, think a bit more generally about, the experience of being a student here. And there is one really, really important thing that I think has been great for our students, and that is the student-run Archaeological Society. There is a link that will come up in a minute that will show you, you can find out more about it and some of the activities that they do. But we have Ariana here, who has done all sorts of, played different roles in the Student Archaeology Society. Ariana, could you tell us a little bit about what the society does and how it supports students?
Yeah, sure. So Archaeology Society, or what we call ArcSoc, is basically a student-led society at the department for not just archaeology students and our whole department as a community, but basically for everybody who has a bit of interest in archaeology. And we have socials every week of the semester. We usually go on a break during Christmas time and over the summer period, but we meet up regularly and weekly, and we have different sorts of events. So we usually do like the fun thematic parties before Christmas, Halloween, Easter. We do pub quizzes where a bit more competitive people can have fun as well. We do treasure hunts. And then what we also love to do is to organise field trips to various places in Scotland. We usually do one field trip every month, which is kind of a one-day trip. So we leave in the morning and we kind of get back to Glasgow with the last bus or train. And then we love to do every semester an overnight or a weekend field trip as well. And we also have, so ArcSoc has great connections with various other organizations, commercial archaeology companies, who always post us fieldwork opportunities or conference opportunities where students can present their research, or they can just go and have a wee lesson, or about upcoming presentations at different organizations as well. And we also been involved with the organization of the Scottish Student Archaeology Society's conference, which is an annual thing, and it rotates between student archaeology societies in Scotland. And the great news is that in 2024, February, we are going to be the ones hosting it. So it's basically a big forum or platform where students can present the research they are doing in a really friendly environment, and they can get feedback for it. They can also listen to what other students are working on at the moment. And we also usually do panel discussions as well, where we invite working professionals in archaeology and the related sectors, where they can talk about their own work, excuse me, and how to get into that specific sector, or share, best tips or tricks on how to get some practical experience, or how to succeed in certain fields within archaeology or related subjects.
Thank you, Ariana. That is great. I should say that ArcSoc is famous across the College of Arts within the university for being so active and well organised, a lot of which, of course, is to Ariana's credit. I should also say that during COVID, I think I'm right in saying this, Ariana, when obviously students were having a really difficult time, feeling really isolated, ArcSoc was great in keeping things going digitally and supporting students in all sorts of ways and helping people get to know each other and so on. So it was absolutely great for that. There's a very nice question from Cullen asking about course offerings and opportunities for landscape archaeologies. So I'm just wondering, I can probably, I will see if I can get a list of the courses to you. I'll do that in just a minute. But the general topics that we have courses on, I've essentially just to explain. So, there's some on landscape. There is some on, sorry. There's some on material culture, there's some on digital archaeology, for example, GIS, and we also have environmental archaeology, so there's a course specifically on that, which is a scientific approach to it, as well as other courses which are more specific to particular areas or periods. So there's one on Scottish castles, for example. There's one on feasting like the ancients, which is about the role of feasting in the prehistoric Near East. For landscape archaeology more specifically, the course that Dave mentioned there, Landscape Archaeologies, that's a sort of an introduction to it. So there's practice and theory and case studies. 3 of us are teaching it. And so there, my colleague Nikki Whitehouse does a scientific approach through environmental archaeology to understanding landscapes. Rachel Oppitz does a more technical approach through remote sensing and digital approaches, geographic information systems, and so on. And then I explore other approaches through trying to understand the human experience of the landscape and the active role that's played by trees and soil and rivers and that sort of thing. So it's a bit more experiential, it's a little bit more theoretical. We think by putting these 3 quite different approaches together, that gives you a really nice, a rounded picture of how to approach landscapes. Going beyond courses, this applies to whatever your interests might be. It's of course through your dissertation, as Dave mentioned, that you can explore your interests. So if you wanted to do a landscape archaeology dissertation, for example, then that would certainly involve going out into the landscape. That would involve choosing a case study, perhaps doing some field work, or join in with some of the field work that we're doing on landscape archaeology. I hope to be working on Glencoe and Rannochmoor next year in the Highlands of Scotland. Opportunities to do some practical landscape work, but similarly museum work or whatever it is that you're interested in, digital work, scanning artifacts and so on. So you would do some practical work there. Then use that as the sort of the data set, the content for the analysis and interpretation you do in your dissertation. You can also use your links with members of staff here, with other students through ArcSoc, as Ariana has just said, to find other fieldwork opportunities or other types of experience that might be helpful for you to follow up your particular interests, for example, landscapes. Okay, and there's a link in the chat there to some, I'm sure, some very nice pictures of Rannoch Moor. Do say if you've got any other particular interests that you'd like to know about. So, you know, as I say, the general headings are things like landscape and material culture and digital. But if you're particularly interested in, I don't know, the Neolithic or later period or Scotland or the Central Mediterranean or Greece or whatever it might be, do say. Think of questions. I'm just sending a list of courses so that you can see them. Courses. There was a link that Max, who's behind the scene doing all the hard work at the moment, Max sent out a list to the full list of courses. Not every courses runs every year. Okay, so if you have particular interest, then you should ask now, or you can email me afterwards. But I hope there's going to be a comment in the chat. Okay, this is a question from Finn. At what point should we have come up with a dissertation topic? What we do in the MSc in archaeology is we tend to have a talk about it something like October, so quite soon, just so you start thinking about it. In a way, it's at that stage, it's the process rather than having a defined topic. You need to be thinking about it. It really helps if before Christmas you can find out who your supervisor is going to be, so you can start talking to them and you're gradually refining it. When it comes to actually starting to work on it, you really need to have a good defined topic by January. And Dave, I don't know if you've got any comments about the experience of working towards your dissertation, which I hope is going well, by the way.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, I think when you do a master's, you probably know where your interests are, and then when you get into the subjects, you kind of learn which members of staff have interest in certain areas or specializations, and so once you get to know them, once you 3 or 4 weeks in, and you can start talking to people. And I have an interest in Rome and the Mediterranean, so I kind of narrowed it down from there. And as you do your subjects, you go, oh, I didn't know that. So you could, and that's how you basically go about it. I don't think easy is the word. It was, I found it easy because I had an interest, and then you taught the members of staff were really helpful, and then you find out the member of staff that's kind of in your area, and then you approach them, and then there you have your supervisor. So it's quite a good process. And then your course convener, which is Michael in this instance, it makes sure that we're going in the right direction. So, I found it was well managed.
Yeah, and as Dave says, you'll get lots of support. As I say, there'll be several sessions for MSc in archaeology. There'll be sessions with me about planning your dissertation and the format and just comparing notes and asking questions and so on. It's really helpful for the students on the program to compare notes with each other and talk about problems they're having, and it turns out everyone else has got the same worry. So that sort of peer support is really important. I think your group, Dave, have been really good at doing that, haven't they?
Yeah, we have. So we still have our coffee sessions and so meet up and chat about different things. So even though we've got different topics, it helps to encourage each other to work through this. So, it was good doing the presentations last month about our topics so we could finalize and get some feedback on where we're going. So it's a really well managed process with lots of support. Well, I found it. So
good. Thank you very much. Perhaps just on that issue of sort of support among students, Ariana, I know this is something that obviously ArcSoc likes, but more generally, do you find there is this sort of culture of helping each other and being a community essentially?
Yeah, I would say yes, absolutely. And I'm not just talking from an ArcSoc perspective, who work quite a lot or quite a bit on different ways we can support students. But I think what I love about being an archaeology student at Glasgow is the community and the sense of community and belonging you kind of get, and you kind of get the support. You can just, even within the student community, we share a study space together, so we can like bounce off ideas of each other, which is sometimes just the support you need to, oh, do you think this question makes sense, or do you think this sentence actually makes sense? And sometimes this is the small amount of support you need. And then also, if you need something bigger, or you have bigger or deeper questions, you can always go to supervisors, course conveners, or whoever is teaching or lecturing you on a special topic. And what I found being here for 5 years now is that doors are always open, even if it's just virtual doors over emails during COVID or something. But I never faced like a rejection in that sense, that somebody was not willing to help me on a student or on a departmental or even on a school or collegiate level. If that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Ariana. I see in the chat, Max has just put up an example course, Material Culture in Context. This is the one that Ariana mentioned a little while ago about theoretical approaches to understanding and interpreting material culture and artifacts. I actually I taught that once and really enjoyed it. All of these amazing guest lecturers who come in for particular sessions. I learned so much from doing that course. And like the ancients is another one. I think there was one year they actually made some Mesopotamian beer as part of this is experimental archaeology to do some research on the importance of alcohol in supporting particular social structures and so on. So I think there's all sorts of experimental archaeology that you could do there. Now we've mostly been talking about the MSc in archaeology, also a little bit about material culture and artifact studies. A little while ago, Max put up the list of different degrees that you can do here, of which they are two. We haven't had any queries about particular ones that you are all applying for. Don't please apply for conflict, heritage, and archaeology, because that is not running next year, because the two main members of staff will be on study leave. There's another two there. One of them is ancient cultures, which is taught jointly by classics, us, theology and religious studies, Celtic studies, and Egyptology. Okay, it's the ancient world in particular, and mainly the Mediterranean, coming up into Northwest Europe a little bit. But that prides itself on this interdisciplinary approach to the ancient world. And quite often some of the sessions are taught by two people from different subjects, so they can throw ideas backwards and forwards. The other one is museum studies, which we don't teach on at all. That's taught by information studies, who have various big programs on museums and archiving and so on. So it's not really about understanding the past. It's about being a museum curator. So that's a slightly separate thing. However, I don't know if any of you are interested in research masters. So what we've been talking about so far are taught masters, PGT, that you see in the chat a lot there. So postgraduate taught. So it's essentially 2/3 of them are courses, and 1/3 is the dissertation. However, you can also do an MPhil by research, which is the research skills course, but then just dissertation. You can also do an MRes, Masters of Research, which is sort of a halfway house in between a research MPhil and a taught MPhil. So typically as an MRes in the sort of, the middle part there, you do 3 or 4 courses and the rest by dissertation. But just on the MPhil by research, if I've got it right, that's what you're doing, isn't it, Ariana? Can you just tell us about your experience of doing a master's by research degree?
Yes, so what I'm doing is an MRes, which is the research masters, and as Michael, you mentioned, that it's kind of a bit of a nice mixture between a taught masters and the research masters, because what's happening with the research masters is when you apply with a certain project and a certain project proposal, and then like throughout the year, like you're constantly working on that, and it's in a way that you have to have or you have to take 3 or 4 taught courses, and then whether you take 3 or 4, like the dissertation length depends on that. So personally, I took 3 courses in semester 1, and then since we came back after Christmas, I was just focusing on my own research and data gathering, data analysis, and then writing all these kind of things up, which are the less fun bit, but still enjoyable. But yeah, so it's kind of a healthy mixture, which I personally really, really liked.
Oh, thank you. I don't know many people who would say that the writing bit was actually fun in so many words, but very satisfying when you get it right and you hold the finished thing in your hand afterwards, as anyone knows who's done an undergraduate dissertation, say. Can I ask you, Ariana, why would someone choose an MRes? What do you need to have, or why did you choose an MRes rather than an ordinary taught master's degree?
Well, the personal reason I chose an MRes, I kind of like a bit of a challenge in it. That I come up with my own topic, and then I will need to work on it like on my own from semester 2, and not just writing a shorter dissertation at the end of 2 semesters. So I kind of saw a bit of a challenge in it, that it's my project, I came up with it, and I will have to work on it basically from January until I actually submit it. So that was one of the reasons why I chose it. But I was and the reason why I chose the MRes and not the MPhil, because I still wanted to get that bit of a opportunity to take courses I couldn't take during my undergrad years, and then meet with new people and experience the master's level of doing archaeology at a lecture theatre or at a seminar discussion.
Right, thank you. So if any of you already know your dissertation topic, if you're really excited by a particular idea and you know it works, you know it's going to work, and it fits in really well with our research interests here, and Max puts up a link to our research web page a little bit earlier, then you should perhaps think hard. There it is again. You should think hard about doing one of the research degrees, like the MRes that Ariana has just talked about. If you have no idea what your dissertation topic would be, or you have no idea what you're really interested in, that's fine. That's what the taught masters is for. And if you don't come in with an idea, then I would very much hope that by Christmas we'll have thrown so much stuff at you that you'll have a very good idea of what you would like to do for your dissertation. Okay. Do have a think about any more specific questions you might have, or put up any interests, and you can just say, I'm interested in X, and we can try and tell you whether we do that here or not. Just wondering if there's any courses that we haven't really talked about. Kingdoms of Northern Britain, that's a sort of period and area specific. So that's the Picts and the Scots and the early the medieval history and archaeology of northern Britain. So I think we're talking about northern England as well as Scotland itself, and that's taught across archaeology and history. Archaeology is often quite interdisciplinary. So I talked about the ancient cultures program, the classics in archaeology, and others do. We also do quite a lot of teaching with history. Scottish castles is another one that's taught by us jointly with history. So you get archaeological approaches to the castles, and you get historical approaches to the castles, and best of all, you get to visit the castles as well. So they have this amazing field trip where they go around a whole lot of castles in the region. Environmental archaeology, that's run by Nikki Whitehouse, who's my archaeological science colleague. And that's an opportunity for people to develop and improve scientific approaches to understanding archaeology. So there'll be climate change and pollen analysis. A lot of it is hands-on. She really believes in learning by doing, but in the lab or looking through the microscope or whatever it might be. So there's quite a strong theme here of archaeological science that we've been working on very hard indeed over the last few years. I'm just looking at the list here. Okay, perhaps we can talk about fieldwork. So you distinguish field trips, which is you do Scottish Castles course, so they take you on a day trip to see some castles. So many of our courses have that. We also usually do a field trip for all our master's students at the beginning of the year. We always used to go to Kilmartin Glen and Kilmartin Museum, which is an amazing concentration of particularly Stone Age Neolithic monuments. There are barrows, there are tombs, there's standing stones, there's rock art, there's an amazing museum which has all of this, but some very important early medieval material as well. And it's just an amazing landscape. They've been redoing the museum, and what with COVID and then that, we haven't been for a little while. But I'm hoping that in October, the museum will be open and we'll be able to do that. So they're field trips. But often our students like to get field work experience. We do have a field school every August. Mostly that's intended for our senior undergraduate students as part of their training. We can, if you have a particular interest in what's being excavated or what's being surveyed or the particular region or period, we might be able to get you onto that. So you should get in touch if you have particular interests there. But also, as we're saying before, you can use your contacts. Many staff run projects across Europe and the Near East. I've got some colleagues who are just back from Kurdistan, for example, just a few days ago, and found a completely new, was it Chalcolithic or Bronze Age pillared hall. And there's this massive monumental architecture never discovered before. So they're all quite shell-shocked at the importance of what they'd all found. And there's more local things. I say I'll be working in Glencoe and Rannoch. We've got a project in Italy at the moment. It's not guaranteed that you'll get places in this, but the first thing you need to do is discover it's happening and go and talk to the relevant member of staff. But also we have very good contacts with work being done elsewhere. I had a student doing MSc in archaeology, actually two of them, who did their own field work for their dissertation very successfully in Cyprus. They got funding from Grampus Heritage, which is a European archaeology and heritage scheme for supporting students to get experience. And that was great. That worked really, really well for them. So, we can always manage that. Talking of fieldwork, Max has just put up a very nice film about our field school last year on Cochno Hill, which is just very close to us here in Glasgow. It's about 20 minutes drive. excuse me, what Max didn't say was that he was actually the filmmaker. He came up to spend a day with us and made this very nice film and interviewed the students. Cocknow Hill was also, I think, Dave, you came up to Cocknow Hill on one of our landscape archaeologies field trips. So, you know, we is that right, Dave?
I think we might have done a wee walk, but it was during COVID lockdown, so I think we might have. Yeah. I think we might have missed out. Thinking back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my fault for not quite remembering which year is which. There was one year where we did manage a course field trip up to Cocknow Hill. Anyway, there's a nice film that you can watch, which should give you a bit of an idea of the landscape and how one of our archaeological projects work. But what's really nice about it is a range of our students, mostly undergraduate students. They talk about doing archaeology here in Glasgow and what that means to them and how they've engaged with it. So there's a bit of a theme here, which is if you have particular interests that you want to follow up, if you have particular aims, things that you want to get out of your degree, then you need to ask. So you're very welcome to ask now. You're very welcome to email me as the MSc convener. And in fact, there is my email address right there. You're very welcome to drop me an email and say, I'm particularly interested in whatever. I want to get particular skills and experiences out of this, or do you have a course in whatever? And I'd be delighted to answer an email, or we could have a chat over Zoom or whatever. Because the whole point of this of a master's program is you go wide, that you're going to get new experiences, new things to learn that you perhaps didn't know that you were interested in, but also that you can pursue your own particular aims. Is it for a career? Is it for a PhD? Is it because you've got this passionate interest in a particular culture or period or area? Our master's programs are very flexible, so that we can do our best to help you follow up your own interests and your own aims. Okay, you can test me on that by putting that into the chat, saying, do you have something on whatever? If it's South American archaeology, we're not going to be able to help. Sorry, our biggest limitation is we do Greenland to Kurdistan. That's our region, but there's a lot there. Okay, so yes. Any last questions? Put them in now, and we'll do our best to answer them. I don't know if Dave or Ariana can think of any questions that you had when you started your degree that you think would be helpful, or anything else that you think it's useful for people to know.
If probably Ariana, I'll probably chat about this. If people are coming international in September, just accommodation wise, so I came in from Australia. So there is postgraduate college like on campus. So I'm in a private rental in Glasgow. So just give yourself sufficient time for placement, and that is a busy time for rentals in Glasgow. So I came in July and then had a rental in August. I'm not sure what the rental market will be like, but it's a good idea to just be prepared for that if you're going to have a private rental, or if you want to nominate for postgraduate accommodation or undergraduate accommodation. It's good to make that decision early. It was quite tight last year, I think. Is that a good way to put it, Ariana?
Yes, absolutely. I would say so. It's just, my best advice would be just think about these things on time, and that would make the whole process of moving into Scotland or moving to Glasgow so much easier. And then also, if we like talking about this transition, a lot of students are coming in from further away, and just like let us know what your worries or questions might be, and we might be able to help with that, because what I experienced at the university and the department is really good on this transition, or like providing support for transitioning students from one school system or one lifestyle to the another one.
Okay, I think thank you very much. That's really important. At the beginning of last academic year, accommodation was tight for a range of reasons. Max there put up the university's accommodation pages. There's also some useful university support for international students. So you can talk to another international student. You can ask particular queries that you might have as an international student coming to Scotland for the first time. So the university is keen to support students that way, as of course are we in archaeology, as Ariana just says. Okay, so any last questions? We've only got a few minutes left. And thank you, Max. There's the international support pages, which I would recommend for answering some of your questions. But remember that our degree itself is international. This is, you would never be doing just Scottish archaeology. So our courses do range from typically Vikings and medieval Scotland to the rest of Europe, and classical, and lots of Mediterranean and Near Eastern archaeology as well. Plus, of course, it's an international experience for all of us, just by our students coming from all over the world, as you can see from Ariana and Dave right here. Okay, so I hope everyone's found this helpful and found this enjoyable. It's been very nice for us talking to you about it. Can I just remind you that if you have any questions for any of us, then drop an email to me and Max, if you just put my email address back up, but you can always search it. Just send me a message. If I'm not the right person, I'll pass it on to the right person. And I'm sure Ariana and Dave will be very happy for me to pass on particular queries to them. Particularly about, I can help with the academic side. If you're concerned about course choices or anything like that, then please do get in touch. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. There's a final video to say thank you and goodbye. And I hope to see lots and lots of you in September.